Chapter 12, MRP and ERP. Good evening. This is Ken Clark. Welcome to Ferris State University at the Macomb campus for Management 370 Spring 2020 semester. We're supposed to be in room S101. However, we're online. We do meet Wednesdays 6 to 8:50. This is our 6 out of 8 times that we're going to get together. This is Management 370 ERA, Quality Operations Management. This is week 11 of 16. It's April 1st, 2020. I do welcome you. Sorry that we can't take any questions, comments, or discussion other than on Canvas. Reminder, summer 2020 registration opened January 20th, 2020. If you're taking classes at Macomb or Oakland community colleges, make sure to fill out a consortium form and get it submitted back. Fall 2020 registration opened up on Monday, March 30th, 2020. If you do not look at your My Degree regularly, shame on you. You really should, because that's the record that we have that says this is how far you are along on your degree. So if you ever say, hey, Ken, what classes do I need? For those of you in the ITM program, that's what I look at, and you have access to the same information. I always say that's kind of like a consultant. A consultant is somebody who borrows your watch to tell you what time it is. Kind of a consultant that way. Anyways, I'd rather teach you to be able to do it and then be able to ask good questions, and because I can get things fixed. All right, tonight is Chapter 12, MRP and ERP. I will have graded your independent researches. I'm sorry that we can't have in-class discussions. That is really why I started that part of the assignment, is to get some spirited discussion in class relative to topics that are directly related to the chapter, but maybe not even in the chapter. For those of you that are kind of disappointed that you're not able to do your 8 random presenters, that's 10% of your participation grade of the 20%, where you do a brief outline of the chapter or supplement and turn in no more than 1 page, no more than 5 minutes, I apologize that you don't have that opportunity. So, sorry. All right. And then we'll end with the page 545 case on promotional novelties. Okay, let's get started. Chapter 12, MRP and ERP on page 500. Let's start with dependent demand. Dependent demand. Demand for items that are subassemblies or component parts to be used in the production of finished goods. Dependent demand. MRP. Hopefully most of you know that stands for Material Requirements Planning. Material Requirements Planning, MRP, is a methodology that translates a master schedule requirements for end items into time-phased requirements for subassemblies, components, and raw materials. You don't have to be done before we start, but you got to be done when we need it. On page 502, the master schedule. The master schedule is one of 3 primary inputs of MRP. Talked about that in our last chapter. It states which end items are to be produced, when these items are needed, and in what quantities. The master schedule. Cumulative lead time. Cumulative lead time is the sum of the lead times that sequential phases of a process require, from ordering of parts or raw materials to completion of final assemblies. A bill of material, BOM. Bill of materials is one of 3 primary inputs of MRP. It's a listing of all the raw materials, parts, subassemblies, and assemblies needed to produce 1 unit of a product. BOM. On page 506, low-level coding. Low-level coding is restructuring the bill of materials so that multiple occurrences of a component all coincide with the lowest level at which the component occurs. Low-level coding. Pretty basic. Just, I need to know what's going to be needed from my area for all products. Low-level coding. Inventory records. Inventory records is one of the three primary inputs in MRP. It includes information on the status of each item by time period. Again, how many am I going to have in this area when they're needed? I don't care what I have right now, but I am going to need to know what's going to be there when I need them. Gross requirements on page 507. Gross requirements are the total expected demand for an item or raw material in a time period. Gross requirements. Planned order receipts on the bottom of page 507. Planned order receipts are the quantity expected to be received by the beginning of the period in which it is shown. On the top of page 508, planned order releases. Planned order releases indicates a planned amount to order in each time period. It equals the planned order receipts offset by lead time. This amount generates gross requirements at the next level in the assembly or production chain. When an order is executed, it is removed from planned order releases and entered under scheduled receipts. It goes from one column to the other column. Planned, executed. On page 512, pegging. This is something that we do in cribbage quite often. You want to get fives whenever I'm kidding. Pegging is the process of identifying the parent items that have generated a given set of material requirements for an item. At the bottom of page 512, regenerative system. It's an approach that updates MRP records periodically, versus net change system is an approach that updates MRP records continuously. Regenerative system versus net change system. Bottom of page 512. I found a couple things interesting on page 514 in the upper left-hand corner. Planned orders. It's a schedule indicating the amount and timing of future orders. Order releases. Authorization for the execution of planned orders. Changes. Revisions of due dates or order quantities or cancellation of orders. Changes. The company I worked at one time, we always said 25% of our monthly schedule changed every week. Do the math. And finally, exception reports. Exception reports are data on any major discrepancies and counters. Exception reports. What do we think was going to happen? What really happened? And most importantly, why? Page 516, backflushing. Got nothing to do with the coronavirus and some of the symptoms. Backflushing is exploding an end item's BOM to determine the quantities of the components that were used to make the item. Backflushing is a procedure in which an end item's bill of materials, BOM, is periodically exploded to determine the quantities of the various components that were used to make the item, eliminating the need to collect detailed usage information on the production floor. It was an old story about they always had a hard time billing the number of tires and the kind of tires and et cetera on tires at General Motors. Finally, the tire company said, I got an idea. How about if you just tell us how many vehicles you made of what kind, and we'll assume that you put 4 tires on each one or it didn't go out the door. And then we'll bill you accordingly based on the number of cars you produce. We'll always keep enough tires there for you, but we'll only charge you as a vehicle goes out the back door. Interesting concept. All right. On page 517, Manufacturing resources planning, which is instead of material, manufacturing. And that's called MRP2. It's an expanded approach to production resource planning involving other areas of firm in the planning process and enabling capacity requirements planning. So again, it's taken it down a level from materials to actually, now, what am I going to do with those materials? Manufacturing resources planning. At the top of page 519, capacity requirements planning, CRP, is the process of determining short-range capacity requirements. The necessary inputs include planned order releases for MRP, the current shop load, routing, information, and job times. Key outputs include load reports for each work center. Capacity requirements planning, the process of determining short-range capacity requirements. At the bottom of page 519, load reports. Department or work center reports that compare known and expected future capacity requirements with projected capacity requirements. Load reports. At the bottom of page 520, distribution resource planning for the supply chain. Distribution resource planning, DRP, also referred to as distribution requirements planning, is a method used for planning orders in a supply chain. It extends MRP concepts, enabling a planner to compute time-phased inventory requirements for a supply chain. The goal is to achieve a balance of supply and demand throughout the supply chain. So the name of this chapter is MRP and ERP. On page 521, so what is ERP? Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP, is the integration of financial, manufacturing, and human resources in a single database. Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP, is a computerized system designed to connect all parts of the business organization as well as key portions of its supply chain to a single database for the purpose of information sharing. Some of the key connections are depicted in the book here. And PeopleSoft are major vendors, although there are many other. So I think some of you are involved in MRP, but I think a few of you are involved in ERP. So that's really big picture. Okay, on page 545, promotional novelties. The questions that you'll have answered by the time you see this are, how many wheel sets should the manager order? And when should the wheel set be ordered? How many and when? And based on the information that you have in here, I'll have given you the long answer, which is why this isn't taken longer right now. But yeah, so that's on page 545, the case, promotional novelties. All righty. So I will be releasing quiz number 2 over chapters 6 through 12 today, ideally by 6 p.m., which is, I believe, when all of your assignments are due to me. So that'll work out well for me. Our next meeting will be week 13 of 16 on April 15th, 2020. We'll be going over chapter 13, inventory management, chapter 14, JIT, just in time, and lean operations. And several people have expressed interest in continuous improvement, lean manufacturing, or just lean operations in general. And the chapter 14 supplement on maintenance, one of my favorite. I will have graded all of your independent researches by then. And again, that works out so much better when we are meeting in class and have a chance to discuss some of those, because a lot of people select the same topic, which is interesting to see it. Right now, a lot of people are reporting on the coronavirus, which is certainly current and not inappropriate. So then next week we will have, in 2 weeks, the case on page 60, UPD manufacturing, and the case on page 641, level operations. And we will take time to review any quiz questions from quiz number 2 over chapters 6 through 12 that maybe a lot of people missed, if they missed the same one. All right, so ideally you're seeing this on or around April 1st. This isn't my favorite way to conduct class. I do like to have that spirited debate, and I do like the chance to have questions and hear from you. There are 44 people in this class, so there's an awful lot of experience that can be shared in the classroom, and I know that I value that, and I hope you do as well. 44 is an awful lot in class, so we're missing out on that. So hopefully when you're submitting your Canvas assignments, you're taking the opportunity to look to see what other people are submitting. Again, I wish it was different, but we're dealing with what we deal with. So again, I hope everyone is healthy and safe. I wish nothing but the best for you and your family. I hope we get beyond this quickly. And in the meantime, again, this is for Chapter 12, MRP and ERP. Thank you for listening. Okay, goodbye.